are you doing roll call or minute?
I certainly can. Since Jim is standing, I will do that on his behalf.
Thank you.
These are new chairs.
Henry Grennan,
Here.
Eliana Velasco,
Here.
Laura Henderson,
Here.
Kirk Spry.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. We've all had a chance to look at the minutes. If I could get a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes.
Well, if I could, and I don't know, oops, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe it was something. It doesn't matter. I don't know how fussed you guys are about language, but I've been other places where the secretary would never want something to go through the typographical error. And I was sworn I read it in this, but it might show up later, but it's no biggie.
I will second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Minutes approved. I have one public comment slip from Virginia Souza.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'm here just to emphasize the importance of preserving the historical trees at Buena Vista Park. We've just come from the Historical Society where we have received some support for the trees. I've got some photos to leave with you about Buena Vista Park, the way it used to look and the way it currently looks, showing the importance of the skyline trees, the trees that if they were removed would be missed. We don't really appreciate trees that are part of the skyline until they're gone. And a great example of this is where they've planted new trees at Santa Maria High School. They've done a fabulous job there. If you look down Morrison Street, you'll see some one mature tree on the property that was preserved and those across the street. And if those mature trees were removed, all the new trees it takes years and years for new trees to replace the look of an older mature tree. So it's extremely important, and we're preparing a full report to meet with Alex Posada at a later date. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we get the pictures? No, good.
Moving on to new business, 5A, commercial activity and concession permit.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This agenda report is presented to you as well as a concession permit and application process that we're proposing for your review and comments. We have noticed an increase in vendors in the parks, and currently there is no permitting process in place. The Park Service officers are working really hard with the vendors to remind them of the rules without offering citations and just getting that into place, but it does state that we have a permitting process. So what we'd like to do is have you review this and then bring back to staff any recommendations and suggestions that you have. Questions?
Questions?
The fellows on bicycles and the women on bicycles, they all have permits, right?
Not to sell in the park. So for the permitting process covers three parts. They would have to have a city business license. They would have to have a health permit if they're serving food, prepared food. They would have to have a special health permit. And then the last one would be the park permit to allow them to sell into the park.
Can they sell off the sidewalk in front of the park?
Correct. So this is going to be for the mobile food vendors, includes the bicycle style,
Trucks.
the automobile style, and then the push cart style vending. It could be food or it could be sundries and like items that people in the parks would use.
Can a truck, you know what I mean by truck, not
Sure.
pull into a school zone area and set up for after-school crowds?
No, there are some restrictions in the current ordinances that prohibit food trucks from being within so many feet of a school. This,
Feet though, I mean, they go down to the corner where all the kids go to cross. And
Right.
you got traffic.
there are some restrictions that are currently in place within the city ordinance, and that's code compliance handles those issues. We're talking about directly serving the park audience within the park.
Commissioner Henderson and Spry.
I do. How will the current vendors be notified?
There are no legal current vendors allowed in city parks.
Right, but so those that are using the space currently?
Currently.
How will they be made aware of these changes?
The park rangers will continue to remind them of the process if this is approved as we go forward. And there'll be a grace period of, before citations are issued.
I have several questions.
Please.
So will it be the park rangers that provide the oversight?
Yeah, park rangers will do the majority of the oversight within the parks, but the police department and code compliance will still have a active role as well.
Okay. And that's manageable within like the...
It's part of their current duties, correct?
Oh, okay, okay. This might be stretching it a little bit, but if these vendors already have a business license, are those vendors cross-checked with Megan's Law? I'm just thinking if a vendor is in the park and they have a permit and families know that they can buy food there, is it cross-checked with Megan's Law?
That is a great question, and researching this program throughout various cities, some cities do have a background check policy.
Okay.
I would have to check with the business license division and see what their process is for issuing a business license. Some businesses are currently required to go through a background check and others are not. So I'll follow up with you on that.
Okay. And then my only other question, if I may, is the fees. I saw the $600 for the mobile bicycle vending. I have no idea what their revenues are, but I'm wondering if that's prohibitive for a bicycle vendor. What if that encourages them to stay across the street and not get a permit, and then the kids are running across the street? Is that something that...
No, that's another great question. The fees are actually one of the lower amount of fees that I've seen in doing the research. The fees directly correlate to the increased staff time that it's going to take to clean up, mostly, additional litter, additional trash pickups, things along those lines. With each different vending type we have in the park, there's a different level, and an individual is $300. The bike vendor would be $600, and the automobile would be $1,200, and I'll correlate to actual cost more than that. Could they stay across the street? Yes. Would it be up to the park rangers to make sure that they still have a valid permit, either a business license and a health department license? Not only the park rangers, but the police department and code compliance as well. Yes.
Okay. So if that was seen as an issue, is that something that we could address? Because I would hate to see that, it might be, I have no idea if that's, would be difficult for some of these vendors. I would hate to see droves of children
Running across the street.
to get ice cream.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I've got a few questions too. Does this only apply to vendors, let's say for the educational groups that are charging a fee?
Can you be more specific as
Well,
far
in
as
other words,
educational?
you mentioned Tai Chi's and things of
Right.
that nature that would meet in a city park as a group. Does it only apply if they're charging a fee to the participants?
Yes, it's for commercial vending, so anyone that is charging a participant for being in a program would be considered a commercial
Okay, so
vendor.
this would not apply to a neighborhood group wants to get together at the park and exercise in the morning?
No, but if someone, if you drive by a city park and someone's teaching dog training classes, for example, and they're charging $25 per
okay.
person, since it's a fee-based program, they would be required to have a vending permit.
Okay. And you mentioned the special events, so this would not apply. So if the vendor had their permit and let's say the concerts in the park was going on, they would have to pay additional to vend at that particular event?
That is correct. When you become a vendor at a special event, you're not only a vendor, you're a sponsor and you're helping support those programs. These fees would not cover that. That is correct.
Okay, okay. But this only applies in parks. We're not talking about anything that has to do with like the Christmas parade when the vendors going up and down the streets?
That is correct. This applies to only within the city parks and the outlying border, the sidewalk area around the park, not vending out for the Christmas Parade of Lights or the Elks Rodeo Parade. a lot of this language is what they use, code compliance uses, to enforce those peddlers, those vendors. And so I was able to use a lot of the existing language. And therefore, we don't have to go and rewrite an ordinance. We can use existing current ordinances.
And you just addressed, I think, my other question. I was wondering if you patterned this agreement or after anything
Yes.
else that currently exists, like other cities or other...
Absolutely. So the City of Santa Maria Code Compliance Division, a lot of the language is from there, but also looking at cities like Denver, Seattle, Austin, who all allow vendors in their parks, which a lot of California cities do as well. But they do go through a permitting process to be able to do so.
Okay.
But the majority is Santa Maria verbiage.
Okay. Well, I think it's good because you're right. Yeah, I've been to some of the parks and there's all kinds of carts rolling around.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some sort of control
Yeah. So
without taking something away from the public, who want
them there, correct. This
Okay.
will also not affect our current specialty structure permit process, which includes bounce houses and those rental type of things. This is only for vendors selling food and sundries within the park.
I have some questions.
Please.
Going off of Laura's comment on the fees, is this, so say I have a ice cream company and I have 10 bicycle carts. Am I paying $600 for each of my bicycle carts, or am I paying $600 for my company?
You are paying for each bicycle cart
So I'm paying $6,000 to be able to sell in the parks.
to sell at all of our 27 beautiful parks.
Okay. And then would renewal fees, these would be the annual fees?
Correct.
Whether
They're-
you're a new vendor or you're coming year after year?
Correct, because from what we've researched is the litter doesn't decrease the second year.
Okay. And then in terms of like non-compliance, have we looked at infractions or fees, or is that just going to go along with whatever code compliance is already doing?
We will use the code compliance process for infractions. I believe it's a citation. They get a couple of times before they get their license revoked.
Okay. And then I know there's documentation that's required in order to get the permit. Is that going to be required annually when they renew?
Yes, just like the specialty structure permit, which again, a lot of the language is based on that as well. Every year they have to show that they are current on their insurance, they're current with their DMV, their health permit has to be updated annually, their business license has to be updated annually, so they do need to resubmit that on an annual basis.
Okay. My only, I know a few, what was it, like 2 years ago, I got a few emails from residents. They were like in boot camps, and they were getting stopped by the rangers saying that they couldn't use the parks. But they were concerned because they were public parks, so why couldn't they use the parks? And that's the only backlash I think I could see from this. It's kind of saying, well, we're paying our taxes, this is a public park, why do we have to pay a fee, which is gonna get passed on to us for boot camps or things like that. I understand with the bike carts and the food trucks and things like that. But in terms of like what Kirk said, if I'm with my neighbors doing yoga and we're not paying, we're just kind of hanging out, and a ranger comes up to us, how are we going to prove that we're not a paying group?
We'll have a list of current vendors for the rangers. For those who are just out there having fun, that is part of traditional park use.
Right.
We encourage that. But for those vendors who are making money off of the city parks, that's an additional use. It is along the same lines as a specialty structure permit, if you think about it, where you're bringing in extra. Would those people actually be at the park if it wasn't for that Tai Chi class? And so when someone is earning revenue because they don't have a brick and mortar, it does cause extra wear and tear on the park, and that's what they'll be paying for.
I just saw somewhere, I guess for like dog classes or things like that, if they had a license, they had a special colored wristband. so that people would know, like, oh, I have my permit, I have my license, don't, my class is legit.
And that's great. I was wondering, it's hard to wear a business license on your
Right.
neck when you're out teaching, so
Right,
thank you for the
'cause,
suggestion.
like, if you're a cart, you could have it on your cart,
Right.
but something like that.
Another thought just came to mind, we were talking through this. It's inevitable that a nonprofit group's going to come up and say, hey, we're going to use the park, we're not making any money off this, but we just are trying to cover our cost. Can we get a break? These fees are fees, regardless of who approaches the city for.
At this point, yes, unless you suggest otherwise. It does cause additional people to use the park that may or may not have been there at that same time anyway. Again, classes are being held at parks. We've seen boot camp. I've seen the dog training classes a lot lately. It does help cover the expense of extra waste bags,
Right.
extra garbage pickups, things along those lines. So at this point, unless directed otherwise, I would imagine that fee is across the board.
Well, we'll have to see how it goes, but I could see it happening, nonprofit
Absolutely.
groups saying, gee, we're only going to be there twice. We have to get a permit for an entire year for something that we're only going to do on a couple of cases. And
I think there would be that exception available or allowable. This is really meant for the vendor that's going to be teaching a 10-week class on dog training. For someone who's interested in using the park only twice to teach or to have an event, they would go through our traditional special event use application process that we already have in place.
At the snack park, people have to pay more.
The-
We're giving them a building, blah, blah, blah.
No, again, that falls into a different contract area with our sports teams. This is mainly for the mobile vending and not the stationary. That snack bar is built into a current contract, correct?
Yes, if the organization wants to do a snack bar, there is an annual fee as part of their use.
So, we've had questions. What else do you want us to do from this?
I need to go back and look up a couple of items, including the background checks, addressing the vendors across the street, and then looking at how to
then
identify
we'll bring it
the
back?
individual teachers, and I'll bring it back.
Okay.
I think it looks good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good.
the questions are just to kind of
Absolutely.
understand it better, but I think that it's something that the public wants and is highly utilized in the system, and might as well make it good for everybody.
I like the questions. I didn't think of one of them. I said, oh, everybody have a good time.
Thank you.
Just one last question. Have we had a lot of complaints from people? Like, there's a lot of people at my neighborhood park because of this class or X thing, or
I don't think there's been a lot of complaints that I'm aware of. I do know that the parks are starting, especially during the summertime. And again, I focus on the dogs, so I've noticed, 3 or 4 classes going on. And right at Rotary Centennial Park, there's the cheerleading programming going on, and it does cause additional litter and things like that. So it does require some time for staff to go pick up Gatorade bottles and things like that. Other than that, nothing's major yet.
But currently, those classes that are taking place, they would get issued a citation, right?
If they're not permitted, currently
Right.
for a class like a cheerleading class, they would go through our contract class coordinator. It's set up in the system.
Okay.
There's a split in the fee, and it covers that.
I tried to look it up if Slow City had a commercial. Do they have a commercial permitting?
I'd have to look. I don't remember if that's one of the ones I looked at.
Because they're close. But,
I want to say yes.
okay.
I'm leaning towards yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just to answer your question on the part, especially the fitness classes, a lot of them do their event in one spot and start to create wear and tear in that spot instead of moving around. And then the other issue we have from time to time is somebody wanting to do a basketball program, and then I can't go out and just shoot baskets, or somebody there
Right.
making a few dollars,
A kid who
keeping the people in the neighborhood out from playing.
Okay.
It'll address a couple of those situations.
So that would be taken into consideration as well, the number of permits that are issued at each site, so that there's not too many within.
Right. We don't need 200 ice cream trucks roaming 27 parks, or 30 basketball clinics going on, because it does take away from the
Recreation.
park and the recreational aspect. It does this new plan does give that flexibility to limit the number. And as well as they do not have the first right to a basketball court. They would have to use areas that are not utilized or not reserved. They could get moved. Yeah.
I have a question. Dennis, are we going to be proactive and do some marketing to people who are vendors, or just cite them and then tell them
No.
you need a permit?
Absolutely proactive. You know, our rangers are really great, and they work with these people anyway, you know, and letting them know the policies and procedures. We've also have actually had a good handful of calls from vendors wanting to do it the right way. So that's also been great. So we'll continue, if approved, and once we move forward, then we will be sure to get the word out. There are a couple trade associations, and so we're able to work with them, or distributors, local distributors that stock those ice cream trucks and things. We could get the word out through them as well.
We would also just go off current business licenses, right?
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so
Thank
we'll
you.
just wait for it to come back. It doesn't look like there's any old business, so we'll move on to informational reports. Budget?
Budget, yes. It is the end of the fiscal year, and we are now in the 16th, 17th year. And I'm very pleased to share with you that for fiscal year 2015-16, our department had a cost savings of $372,280 and ended at 95%. And that's a really good place to be. It's not too much, it's not too much less. So, and because the general fund is going to be balancing the 16-17 budget, the cost savings was more important this year than it has been in previous years. So that was a good number to land upon. There was an issue with a shortage associated with Oakley Park retention, and we were able to address that through this cost savings without having to impact the upcoming fiscal year. I don't typically report upon revenues, but because revenues are a great topic these days, I'm going to do that this time. So for our revenues, and thanks to Jim for reminding me that we were waiting on $130,000 for our pull contracts with the Joint Union High School. So in terms of revenues, our revenue target was $1,496,438. And we did very well in our revenues this year. We came in with $1,392,396, so that's closer than we have been in some of the years. So we realized at this time, including the pull note that we have on your sheet, we are at 84.36% of our revenues. At the last meeting, there was a question about the ACES funding. There was a check for $50,000 that was pending. It has come in, and now we are at the $405,000 that we throw out there each year. We've never met that since I've been here. However, in dealing with finance, they agreed, and so did the school district, that instead of using the grant billing rate, because of our organization and the breadth of it, and being a government agency, we are using the outside billing rate this time. So I anticipate that we will come closer to that number that we've been using for several years.
How many parks or city properties do we have, these cell towers or whatever they call them?
We got 5,
And the city gets the revenue from those?
so they go to the general fund, correct?
We were fortunate with the Oakley Park revenue to put in the resolution that that would go to either maintenance or programming at the Oakley Park location. In fact, the Safe and Strong program was funded, much of the staffing was funded through that money.
Was there ever concern about those things that turn people sterile or wherever it is because of a tower in there in the neighborhoods? Did they get? come forward concerned?
I've just heard from friends of mine that live in various areas and in other cities that they feel it's an eyesore, but the newer cell towers are much more attractive and more aesthetic, and I think that the companies are really making a big effort because they need the cell towers. That's their bread and butter. So I think that's evolved over time. Jim, you've had experience with that. What's your thoughts?
But no complaints. That's great. It is good revenue. Are these in the form of trees in most cases?
Right, well, for instance, Atkinson, they're on the sports field lights. Seamus, they're on sports field lights. Then at Oakley and Russell, it's a pine tree. And then there's discussion of another site at Rotary Park. And we're working on the utilities division is working on the agreement for that site. And then the community development is the one who requires sets of standards as far as what type, we are able to give input, but they're the ones in planning commission, the ones that determine what they want it to look like.
Yeah, gee, that's a lot of money.
Any other questions? Oh, okay. Moving forward. Noteworthy activities, those were all in our packet, if anybody has any comments on that.
Busy month.
Yeah,
A lot going on.
good job.
Very busy.
And on the city ranger side, it looked kind of quiet. I don't know, the numbers just seemed,
Part of it is, they were in training. They spent a good portion of the month in annual training that's mandated. And then on top of that, they're getting a lot of, they're being recognized out there, so they aren't having the issues of having to use the citations and those type of things to enforce. So that's making it easier too.
That's
What's
good.
a personal citation, the way they look? Or
What is this personal citation?
yeah, there's a whole bunch
I'm
of
not familiar with the different,
244
What is it?
funny-looking people in
Personal
Santa Maria.
I was just curious, as far as the Safe and Strong, which park is bringing the most kids in?
Definitely Grogan Park, Oakley Park. Tunnel had some busy days. There was really not a park that was very limited. We had one at Buena Vista, Oakley Park, as I mentioned, because Oakley was new, it was very, very popular. Every time we went over there,
I would
it
have
was
assumed
just
it'd be in Oakley because of that.
really thriving. Grogan Park has always been a good location too. I think there's a great need there, and it's very walkable because it's surrounded by so many housing tracts. It was just so great to see all those kids in the park.
Well, when I heard 20,000 kids for the first year,
I was, quite frankly, I remember telling Alex, I said, what if they don't come? All these rec leaders. And I was, we were kind of concerned that maybe we were overzealous, but when I found out today, Laura, thank you for coming again to our end of the summer celebration. I was still using the 21,000 number, and unbeknownst to me, until my staff showed me their attendance number, it was 25,800 kids over the summer.
That's duplicates.
wow.
It's their visits to the park. We came up with little pads so that they could keep their attendance, and they had to turn them in at each site. So
Does the
that's
school-
how
yeah.
many visits, 25,800.
Because the school district has about 20,000 kids in it, but then you've got kids who aren't in school who are coming into our park, so you get to
And
count.
you know what was interesting? Many of the moms, especially with the younger children, came to the park
Stayed.
with their children and stayed. And they became unofficial volunteers because they were just out there, and there was this really sense of family. What we're trying to do for the next year is we've met with the Public Works Department, and in Simi Valley, what they do in their transit program is most transit is federally funded. And in order to have that federal funding, you have to have a pre-designated route. So I'm working with the YMCA, Transit, Boys and Girls Club to see if we can get a summer bus that would take that route and bring people from the Guadalupe Flyer, which is something that the city is looking at too because of Guadalupe's challenges. So if we could do that, could you imagine how much more children we can help? So we'll see, we're going to continue those discussions.
Well, I heard great things from neighbors, and my parents would send my niece and nephew to the park, and just people that volunteered, that it was great. The kids were super involved, and they all did a great job, so thank you to your staff and yourselves.
Well, and I have some thank yous too. In fact, today the Parks Division, they came to the celebration because if they don't make the parks nice, we can't be in them anyway. And they were very proud of what they did, and I mean, partners in community recreation, they were just beaming, and it was great because it's just such a good depiction, and it created a lot more work for them. There was more trash, a lot more trash, and I have to give a shout out to utilities too. They were sponsoring the program, so Recreation and Parks didn't have to pay for any more garbage collection, which would have made it probably unaffordable for us. And then talking about the parks rangers, we met with Casey ahead of time, and he felt that he was staffed enough that he could really have a presence. And with all that's going on with law enforcement and people thinking they're the bad guys and overreacting, even the police department, who has been stretched for staffing, they came to many of the parks and talked to the kids, handed out the little badges. And so it wasn't just our success, it was really a community success. And the number of partners that kept calling us and coming to us, we didn't even ask for most of them. They just decided that they wanted to get on the boat and sail it. So it's just really makes my heart very happy.
It's almost impossible to do, but to me, it's always amazing how many teachers in the Santa Maria Bonita and in Orchid started in our rec program on the playgrounds. That's really commendable.
You know what, my question, and I don't know how to get it answered, is if we had that many kids in the parks, what would they have been doing otherwise?
You got it.
Right.
It's
And
a frightening thought.
It is. And I think that the celebration was so nice today because it really showed how many people were involved and how many people wanted to have their hands in it. And I sensed a real excitement for next summer. I mean, a lot of work and a lot of planning and a lot of everything behind the scenes, but I saw a lot of enthusiasm and excitement and ready to do it again. But I think kudos to you, especially for spearheading the project.
Well, kudos actually to City Council for approving it, because I recall, how many rec leaders do you need for the summer? I said at least 24. That was a lot of money. So they had that vision, and Alex Posada, our director, is a risk taker, and he's teaching me to be a risk taker because I like to play it safe sometimes. But I mean, it just exceeded my expectations, and that's a pretty hard thing to do, huh, Dennis?
Well, and now that it has been a success, the word will get around.
Yeah.
So next year, you could see that 25,000 visit skyrocket, so you better get a whole bunch of rec leaders ready to go.
Yeah, well, actually, we're gearing up for the fall already. And Mr. Posada has asked that we have a Safe and Strong at New Love, one at Tunnel, one at Oakley Park, and what is the other one? It escapes me at the moment, of course. Anyway, we will have 4 in the fall, so we need to start preparing for that very quickly because the fall is on its way.
Well, you had the potential, I think, for a lot of trouble when you took away from some families, more middle-class families, their summer programs for their kids, and you slid that thing in there so nicely. I just think it really went well.
Well, and I can say there was one reported incident, but that incident turned out being bogus. A mother thought she saw something, but when it was investigated, she changed her story. So I was worried about that, but our parks are very safe because if you keep a park beautiful like our staff does, it deters people that are looking for trouble. So the Parks Division, again, deserves a lot of credit for
Look,
that.
and you're getting the parents out there. Where
Yes, that
that'll,
was something I didn't really expect. It
Yeah.
was a really big help because the families that were out there had the smaller children. And it was hard, you know, it was for 6 to 12-year-olds, but what do you do with this 4-year-old who's following his brothers and sisters? So we really didn't enforce that. And that's where those moms and those families came in. It was just
Neat.
amazing. Definitely a group success, a group effort.
Getting back to the Parks Rangers, are they looking also in their rounds for misuse of the park grounds? What I'm asking specifically is, I was driving by Crossroads Basin the other day, and you know, with that, and it really looks good with that new turf down there. And a guy was out there with his irons practicing his golf shots, and I'm thinking,
Yeah, when we see things like that, where the rangers or even our staff will stop and say something to them, and just let them know that, you know, it's not the appropriate use for the facility.
oh, good, because I haven't seen that in a long time. And so the message, but now I've seen it now twice. Not once at Crossroads and over at Rodenberger.
Well, that's when it started looking like a putting green, everyone's getting out.
That's exactly right. It started to look like a golf fairway, and then, oh, there, maybe I'll practice out there.
Yeah, Adam's looking great. Just by the way, I drive by there all
Yeah.
the time, and it's amazing how quickly it turned around. I mean, it was
yeah.
dust.
It's a trick, let me know.
Yeah. Can you come over to my house?
When do we turn the lights on again?
When are we turning the lights on again?
Hit that,
Oh, Crossroads.
no, we have,
Where?
I had one more question on the park
sorry.
officers. I read that they went through a series of trainings, and it said responding to, especially tests for appropriate responses to physical and mental situations. Do they get training in dealing with people with disabilities in parks and
You're
how?
still in the Parks Rangers?
Yes.
Yes, they, in fact, right before the summer started, they went through a week-long training by Martinelli.
Is it like the post-training, like similar to what the
I think it's
police officers
similar,
get?
Jim, probably.
Yeah,
better answer your
post-training,
question.
required training, mandated training.
Good,
For
good,
peace
good.
officers, and that is part of the training.
Good.
And actually, well, you mentioned police officers. They came into the parks, one of them brought the Humvee. I don't know if you like that or not, Jim, because it can cause damage. But they brought some of their things into the park, and it was just such a great collaboration because the police department has been so busy with community issues and beefing up their staff, but they actually had enough staff that they could join the park services officers and be in the parks with us.
I think it's a great opportunity to teach them how to smile too.
No
Great.
comment.
All right, moving on to subdivision and Luffy update on process.
Okay, this is an informational item. It's going to City Council on Tuesday the 16th. Basically, we're looking at setting the land value per acre of land at $321,000 based on the latest land appraisal for recreational open space and areas that are zoned open space. And then traditionally, we have given for park credits, we've given a third of the land value, $107,000 would be the credit that developers would be available for. And then back in 1974, government code established a system where agencies could impose fees for new development to provide funds for parks and or recreational purposes. In Santa Maria, that was known as the subdivision in lieu fees. And in 1995, the council adopted resolution directing subdivision in lieu fees and residential development tax to be collected as part of the AB 1600 program. That worked good until 2007 when a developer asked for some credit on a project, and we realized that we did not have any mechanism to provide credit in the AB 1600 program. And then taking a look at trying to establish credit, a way for credit, it was determined that we already, in the government code, already allowed that in the subdivision and lieu fees. So the council has broken that out, or back when we took fees to council as part of the AB 1600 and all the updates, that was broken out, and that we're going to collect those separately as opposed to all part of the AB 1600. And then So then, as far as, there's a calculation that goes into it's household size, that's different, average household size determined by the state of California is given community development. That's how we divide that. And then it's also based on the number of units that are being developed. Things, and so that's how we come up with the $1,990 per dwelling unit for the fee for the developer. And with that, any questions or?
The Tobes things that they built on the west side of town, down off of Battles in that area, do they drive 1,000 people in those things?
I'm trying to remember, they'll be in that neighborhood when you take a look at the number of buildings. They've got 5 different phases, and I'm drawing a blank on the number of.
So in that configuration, then the city can require 5 acres or the equivalent in money for a park, correct?
Yes.
Do we ever do that?
We work with the developer and take a look at what our needs are in the area, and so.
Because there's a park there by, what's
There's
that school
there's
over there,
Westgate
Liberty?
there. Yeah,
Westgate
Park
Right
is right
there.
there, yeah.
But there's a lot of development out over at the other place. And even that new place over by Hancock, I didn't realize it looks like Disneyland. I mean, chimney, crickets, I keep waiting for rockets to go off out of it and flags to be mounted. I mean, that's a lot of people in there.
Yeah, the Hancock Terrace. Well, yeah.
And no children, right? It's supposed to be 55 and older? No?
I'm not familiar with the specifics on that.
Well, whatever the specifics were, if there's vacancies, the specifics will change. That's all I know.
Commissioner Sprague?
In the report, you mentioned one of the ways to calculate the per dwelling unit fee. Are there other ways?
That's the way it's set, is to, how we just come up with, determine the subdivision loop fee, is,
So that is the way that we do it. It's not just one of the ways that's up for discussion, or?
no, it's the formula that's set as to how it's done, and that's been set by
Okay.
code. And that's showing the process of how we arrive at the 1,900. And again, it's based off of what the per acre value is.
Right.
And then if there
And
was that-
obviously, the department doesn't set those. They're just taking factors that are given to you and to calculate. Where does the 1/3 come from?
That's something historically that we've used as a number. I don't know where that was originated from.
Yeah,
And the other thing that I failed to mention it's beneficial is the municipal code used to require that we could only do these, if we did not update the subdivision loop fee in January of each year, then we could not update it during the course of the year. And so also, when they updated the fees, they made a change that the subdivision loop fee can be adjusted as property values if we need to during the course of the year. It's not a set by code now that a certain time has to be done.
so just to clarify in my mind, so a developer now in a given development is paying AB 1600 fees and a subdivision in lieu?
And
Fee.
also the residential development.
Right.
So they're,
Whereas before, it was just all collected under AB 1600, now it's been split out.
well, what we did is we lumped it all together into AB 1600, and then there was a percentage that went to the growth, or to the Quimby fees or subdivision
Yeah.
loop fees, and then a percentage that went to residential development tax, and then the rest went to the AB 1600. Because we said, okay, this is what we need for AB 1600 for recreational amenities, and then we added in the other 2 fees, so that's how we arrived at our total AB 1600 fee. So we basically, we've got 3 line items now as opposed to 4, we just
So
had
it didn't,
one.
there wasn't any increase to the developers, just breaking it out so they could see the separate, okay.
And gives us a mechanism, the main purpose is it gives us a mechanism to be able to give
Do
credit.
the credits, exactly.
Where when it's called AB 1600, we did not have that mechanism or ability.
Is the Tobes thing over there by Hancock, did they complete that trail? How'd that trail get done? It doesn't go very far,
That was a
but
requirement of their development that be completed, and I think we've accepted that now.
that only brings it up to that college anyway. If we're going to do anything, we'd have to do it on the other side.
Yeah, us, or if there's another development. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on, updates on commission recommendations for tobacco use in parks.
Okay, and again, this is going to City Council on Tuesday the 16th. We've had, over the years, probably public hearings and recommendations the commission has made. And at this point, we're proposing a complete ban on smoking, or not smoking, tobacco products in the parks. Before, we talked about designated places and those type of things, but at this point, we're going forward with a proposal of a complete ban of tobacco products in all of our parks and open spaces. And it'll be amended as part of the municipal code if council approves it next week.
I just hope it doesn't meet the same fate that it did several years ago.
That there are groups that are planning on attending Tuesday's meeting. Have you heard of any opposition? Planned opposition?
No, I haven't not heard, and there wasn't a whole lot of organized opposition previously either.
Yeah,
But there were other issues that are concerns that were considered at that time.
what I remember, most of the opposition was individuals and individual rights, whereas there are groups that are behind the complete ban.
And one of the major issues previously too was the enforcement of that.
Yeah.
And how it would be enforced, and concern of other issues that might arise out of that. But I think,
Are police going to become the smoking cops, or, you know, get calls for somebody smoking over in Rotary Centennial
I'll
Park?
take care of it all. I've been waiting.
There's a big interest in drawn and quartered. That's what they'd like to see done.
I mean, if we'd like to attend, we can, or speak to our appointed council members, let them know our support for the ban. Okay, moving on. I think Alex is the one that speaks a lot, right? Official business conducted by a member. I want him to hear that, no.
And now that's on record, by the way.
I'm kidding. So it's official business conducted by a member. My update was I met with, or Alex and Netta Zayer asked to meet with me in regards to the downtown specific plan because there needs to be a downtown committee. And so we decided that I would be appointed to the committee as the Recreation and Parks Commission representative, and that it's yet to be determined when we will be meeting or how often, and we haven't met yet. And so once we start to, I will be coming back with you with updates, taking information from all of you also to the committee for the downtown development. And just like we do here for Rec and Parks, kind of advocating for the downtown plan and any changes. It's really exciting because it's a new time for our downtown. So there's an appointment from the Planning Commission, Rec and Parks Commission, and then 2 city council members also on the committee. So as soon as I have more information to share, I will be updating all of you. So
Do you know how the council member will be appointed? Or when?
They decided last council meeting, and I believe it's Jack Boyson and Etta Waterfield. So there was only supposed to be one, but they couldn't decide it, so so much interest, so they just went ahead and elected 2 to the committee.
We also met with Jim and was Alex there?
Yes, Alex, and school boards,
And the school
board members,
And
the
the
new superintendent, and the assistant superintendent?
No.
No,
The facilities, and then the business manager.
business manager.
Right,
You can-
the old interim. And talked about joint use and recreation and parks needs and the community's needs and what the district can provide as far as, I guess, two different aspects, access to playgrounds and facilities, and also access to fields for organizations. And it was a very productive meeting. I think it was informative for everybody. The school board members were, and staff were unaware that there were schools that were not accessible to the community. And that's something that they said that they would address with the principals and find out what the current practices are, and then kind of decide a path forward to make sure that they are accessible to the public during non-school hours. It's not something that's going to happen immediately, but it's something that is going to be worked on. And then we're supposed to meet again at the end of August, I believe, as stakeholders in examining kind of what the current practices are in the school district, and then coming up with a plan to get more community access.
You know, driving around looking, I went by tunnel, I look at the schools and I go by anyway. And whoever was there, it appeared, when they left for the weekend, they unlocked their gates and opened the gates. And that, it's simple things to let people on those campuses, but anyway.
Well, perhaps those changes have already been made at some of the sites because,
Well, see, part of that was left up to the principal.
Right.
Which is wrong. Principal, that's not his or her school. That school belongs to the community in the district. And what they need is they need district standards on that, yes, they will be open. It's not a question of whether you like it or not.
and I think that they acknowledge
That was
that.
the indication that they'll be taking a look at how the sites are accessible and how they're allocated and who allocates them. They're going to be doing just like we are, we're doing a complete review of the process and see how we make it effective for the community also.
And I think a good thing also came out, Jim was able to give our new superintendent a tour of all of the joint use schools with parks.
And his request.
Yeah. Yeah, this is his request to go see, kind of where the fences are, what the boundary lines are. So that was also a good input from him.
Those boundary lines are hard to show.
They got a fence now.
Yeah, their boundary lines.
Well, what's exciting about it is at least a line of communication has now been
Yes,
established,
exactly.
which didn't exist.
And it's from the top.
Good, yeah,
And that's where
exactly.
it has to come from.
Yeah, and a lot of, there was a lot of input, kind of how are we going to work together, what processes do we already have, how are we going to strengthen them, so that was really reaffirming, I think, and there was a lot of acknowledgement of what's been happening, shouldn't be happening, and
Yeah,
vice versa.
that's great.
And then the other part of it too is with part of our new our policies of field allocation and meeting with the groups. We have 2 meetings a year depending on the end season. And they indicated the district would be interested in coming and tag teaming with us to go over their how they use their fields and those type of things, so that the teams and the leagues can get in and use those too. So it's opened up a couple lines of communication, and also things that are already in place makes it a lot easier for one or the other group.
There's been no serious problems with the gyms, has there?
No.
Any other comments?
We don't have a date though set for the next.
No, that has
meeting.
not been set at this point to my knowledge. Especially with the school starting next week. I feel like if I need to
You
remind
guys did a
you.
great job with that.
Don't let them forget.
We also met with
Thanks,
Jim
Lauren.
for Jim, you've just been so informative lately. The Enos Ranchos project, and Ileana and I had the chance to look over the plans and get a really good overview of what the streetscape is going to look like, and it's overwhelming. It's beautiful. I think it's a project that's going to be very very well liked by the public, in the shade and the colors and the plan. It's unique, it's new, and I'm really excited to see this go forward.
Could we all kind of get as long as I've been here, I've been asked more questions about the Enos property than anything else that ever's gone on. I just make up stuff. But if there's, a picture or something,
Well, I've got pictures of the streetscape.
Yeah, this is the concept of the streetscape and the possible plans as part of it, and get some input, so.
But I enjoyed the meeting because of the wealth of information that you both provided. You're very knowledgeable about this, obviously, but I got quite an education, and then started hitting up other people for landscaping ideas.
So you're gonna do
That's very enthusiastic.
Oh, it is. I
Right.
mean, everybody's looking for, and they want to know what that house is doing out there.
It's staying put, right?
For a
That's
while.
it, that's
Not-
its
Yeah,
home?
not there. It'll be brought into a park area. Well,
That is the
It would
park.
have- The pad has to be.
well, that
built.
is the park?
That, basically, it's gonna slide forward from its
Right.
current location.
Yeah.
So we gotta do the grading, get the pad built, and the infrastructure and utilities and all that.
Franklin Parks really likes new houses.
Oh, I'll tell you, they sure did a good job with the offices, and they haven't kicked you out yet, too. I think it was kind of nice.
I have.
He's out,
So,
one at a time.
can you clarify what our next meeting?
Next meeting is 6:30. We're gonna have the sports group field use public hearing is in the September meeting.
So are we having like a regular meeting
That's what-
before and then just meeting for that at 6:30?
No, 6:30 will be our regular meeting, the public hearing report of the public, of our regular meeting.
Okay, so we're not meeting till 6:30.
Correct.
Okay.
So everybody knows, September 13th, 6:30 PM.
Here.
I just, once again, wanted to, we have never had, that I can remember, the coverage that we've had in the
Yes.
local paper that we've had. And I got a thank you.
Today,
I
and our
know.
celebrations were the best.
And everything.
Yeah, it's very positive, it's upbeat, it's just exactly what the city needs right now to let, you know that, no, we are not a crime-ridden city, that, so, that's great.
Yeah, thank you, Lily.
And I do just want to mention, we also have Surf Santa Maria coming up a week from Saturday. So there's some, information out there, get signed up. There's some projects they're looking at doing at Prescott Park for us, Froman Park, and a couple of other locations. So if you know of any individuals or groups that want to sign up, I'll be looking for it.
What's Saturday?
Next Saturday, so the date is the,
20th?
20th, August 20th. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn until September 13th at 6:30.
6:30, huh?
Oh, I found that.
I remember.
Mexico earlier than last year?
This is
September.
24.